they do, and then being able to offer them a solution that's catered specifically to their needs. So you're not getting more than you need, you're not getting less than you need. And if you own a bakery, you're not being insured like you own a hair salon. There's very specific needs that each type of business has, and I love being the one to educate people on that, and just helping them be a better business owner so they can make more money for themselves.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Becky, you're next up on my screen. I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here as well. Which does sound weird when we're talking about insurance, but yes, like Adam and Chase, we are legitimately excited about this topic. So I'm Becky Arriaga, one of the co-owners of the Arriaga Agency. Catchy name, I know. We are a farmers insurance agency, so we do similar things to Adam, of course, the personal lines, but my background and my business partner, who's also my sister, we had a marketing firm for 20 years prior to jumping into this super sexy industry, and really kind of got to know insurance from the other side of the table. So one of the things that we are, really passionate about and really love doing is just sitting down with business owners and explaining all the things that we had no clue about when we were sitting on the other side of the table. I tell people like, wow, this stuff is really important. Why didn't anybody tell me about that sooner? And I'm sure somebody did tell me, and I just wasn't listening. So that is one of the areas that we focus on. The other area that we've created kind of a niche expertise in is in the short-term rental market. So we know a lot of our entrepreneurs out there are, kind of doing all they can to keep their main hustle and their side hustle, and short-term rentals is really definitely one of the hot topics here in Austin. So kind of understanding how you can protect yourself in that arena is critical, because it's a completely different ballgame than your traditional homeowners insurance or even your landlord policy. So that's some of the fun things that we're doing over at the Arriaga Agency.
Great. I think we're going to circle back on that like gig side hustle insurance in a few minutes. Yeah. But Chase, I'd love to hear from you a little bit about what your expertise is, who you are, who your firm is, etc.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Leah, for putting all this together. Thank you, Tina, and the Chamber for providing the venue for us. This is really exciting. My name is Chase Kincannon. My firm's name is Capital Strategies. I am a fee-based fiduciary financial planner and wealth manager. I have a 16-year background in insurance. And unlike the other two panelists, I do not participate in property and casualty insurance. I don't insure your actual business. I work mostly with business owners, attorneys, and real estate developers and individuals who own investment real estate, like Liz. Like Becky. Liz is her sister. And help them with things like exit strategies, issues where they're growing, not sure what to do next. My tagline is I help people make smart financial decisions. And insurance comes into that when we start building defensive strategies against the what ifs. What if things don't go to plan? So hopefully I can help fill in some gaps in the discussion today.
Great. Thank you, Chase. I'm really happy that you all are here today. So thank you so much. I have some questions for you, and I'm going to ask, and then as we move on in our webinar today, if we have any questions from the audience, feel free to chat those, and we will try to get all of your questions answered. Becky, I'm going to circle back to you. As business owners, we oftentimes, especially when we're first starting out, have side hustles or investment properties or other gigs. And it's not something that I've really thought a lot about until I heard you mention this. What do we need to do to protect ourselves if we have other things that we're doing, like a side business? Do we need special insurance? Does it depend on what the side business is? How do we know?
Those are actually great questions. And we could just have a whole seminar just kind of on how to protect your side hustle. And it's going to vary based on what you do. Just a very simple example is if you drive for Lyft or Uber on the side, all of a sudden you're using your personal vehicle, which you may have personal auto, which you should have by law, personal auto insurance on. It's not covered when you're en route to pick up your customer. So you're typically thinking, oh, I'm going to cover it if I get, if something happens to my car. You're not. So there's gaps that we need to, kind of have a conversation, get to fully understand kind of what your side hustle is, and then figure out how the best way to manage that. Typical, you can add an endorsement onto your auto insurance in that regards. But I think, it's, I am so pro side hustle. It's ridiculous. So just sitting down and kind of thinking through where you're vulnerable. If you've got inventory that you're warehousing in your home and your house floods, that inventory may not be covered if it's part of your business expense. Just, it's just a different way to kind of think about, kind of where your livelihood is and what's going to be important. So.
Yeah.
If I can add a little bit to that, I think it's really important to have a great relationship with your insurance agent, because a great insurance agent is going to help you figure out what you need and what you don't. And Becky gave us a great example, like a Lyft or Uber driver doesn't necessarily need a separate insurance policy because they're doing that. However, a lot of side hustles, you really do need a separate insurance policy. And I'm sure Adam can speak to that with a lot of expertise. What I wanted to add was, a lot of times that liability coverage that comes with either your business owner's policy or an endorsement on a personal policy is a great first layer of defense. Liability coverage tends to be a really inexpensive part of an insurance policy. And notice your base policies usually come with $100,000 worth of liability. And it may cost less than $100 to increase those liability limits to like $1 million of protection. And that's far cheaper than a retainer for an attorney, much less what being on the wrong end of the lawsuit is going to cost you. So those liability limits are really important. But while we're talking about attorneys, a lot of outside business interests, your gigs, might require a business entity. So if you are looking at another property, either to own as a vacation rental or perhaps as a short-term rental, a lot of times it's advisable to own that property through an LLC, or even incorporating that entity, that property, into another entity, because that LLC is also going to provide another layer of protection between you and a lawsuit. And the LLC buys its own insurance policy. So just food for thought. You really need a great insurance agent on your side. And a lot of times it's worth paying an attorney you trust just to have a conversation about, do I really need to, are there any stones I need to turn over here?
I'll chime in as well, Chase. That's a great point that you make. And one of the things that I get most frequently from people with either side hustles or small businesses is they may not have a relationship with their existing agent. And a lot of times in our line of work, when we get a referral or when we're talking to somebody, they obviously don't have the best relationship. Otherwise, they wouldn't be talking to us necessarily. So there's a couple different types of, when you're out hunting for what kind of agent you're looking for. A lot of agents specialize in certain niche things. There's a lot of agents that are independent. There's a lot of agents that own captive agencies. That's like one of the differences between me and Becky. And I'll tell you right now, I know nothing about Farmers Insurance, but Becky is the expert at that. And Farmers has very specific niches that they do very well. So when you do your research as a potential customer, look at those options to determine who does good at what, so to speak, and which carriers. There's so many different carriers out there, and whether you're captive, whether you're independent, a lot of us can represent multiple different carriers. But I'll be the first one to tell a client of mine, hey, this is the type of policy you need, or this is the niche area that you have. I don't focus on that, or it's not my my go-to. So I'm going to send you or recommend you to somebody who really specializes in that. And being in the industry that we're in, we network with each other too. So, if you build a relationship with somebody who even, let's say, does your personal auto insurance, for example, and they may not be the commercial expert, your agent can probably help get you to the right person. And any good agent, I think, is going to be okay with that, because I'm not going to want to put my reputation and my business and my expertise on the line for something that I don't know about. So that's a really good point that I think people should know too, is, there's enough business to go around for all of us. We're here to help you. And I think any good agent or any good investment advisor will point you to the right direction, thinking of you over themselves or a commission or something like that. To me, the most important thing is making sure that a business is properly covered. And there are so many little things like what Becky just said about, having an Uber, being an Uber driver and having to get a rideshare endorsement on there. I've seen the good side and the bad side of those situations. And I'll tell you, I've seen carriers that, never mind being in an accident, on your way to go pick up a Lyft driver or something. I've seen carriers that they find out that you're doing rideshare and you don't even have an endorsement on there, regardless of whether you're in the middle of driving for a rideshare. They can potentially cancel your policy, or they can non-renew you because you didn't tell them that you were doing rideshare. You may not have even known to tell them that you were doing rideshare, but that's why I always tell people to stay away from your saving 15% in 15 minutes. Okay, it's not worth it. You're not getting a person. Sorry, I don't mean a company drop. You're not getting a person who's got your back. You don't have a person you can pick up the phone and call. If all you have is a 1-800 number, that's not good enough. Get out of that immediately.
Yeah.
I'd like to chime one thing in very quickly. As a member of the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce, shameless plug, Adam mentioned the relationships. And I am biased. I was on the board for a long time. If you're opening or already own, whether it's a side hustle or your main business, if you're the entrepreneur who owns the business, then you either know or you're about to know the importance of being able to trust and rely on your insurance agent, your CPA, your business attorney, and a host of other professionals that you need in your back pocket, sometimes at a moment's notice. And for me personally, I've been a member of this chamber since 2011 or 12, I think. And a lot of my professional relationships have developed because of the work of this Chamber of Commerce. And I have great people that I refer to and do business with and share clients with. And it makes me feel really great that not only am I doing good business, but I'm also supporting the community and the mission of the Chamber. So check out on the Chamber website, make sure if you're looking for a professional, look through that directory because there's a whole host of wonderful people and businesses in there that are ready to help you out. That's what we're here for as a chamber.
And you know what, I'm just going to add something to that, Chase, because I think that comment that you made is just so important about the members of the chamber. And if there's a lot of, small business, new businesses that are coming in to the chamber that, maybe their first venture as an entrepreneur. I would say, look at that directory and consider every single person in that directory as part of your board of advisors, because everybody is so willing to give of their time, of their energy, of their knowledge, just by picking up a phone call and say, hey, I found you on the LGBT chamber directory. I have a question. All I have is a question. People will jump in and help. So, we're all here to help you with insurance questions or anything else you may have in that regard, but also over and above any questions. We're happy to help.
Absolutely. Thank you for those, for that information. Definitely check out the member list online. Chase, I have a question for you.
Yes,
so as a business owner, my income comes from my business, right? It comes from my small business. What happens?
I hope there's income.
What happens if I'm disabled? What can I do to protect myself and maybe my business? And everyone feel free to jump in, but Chase, I'd love for you to start us off. How do I protect myself in the event that I become disabled and can't work?
So one of the less fun aspects of owning your own business is while you have the freedom of not being under another, you don't have a boss, you are the boss. You also don't have any benefits provided by your company unless you're the one who puts them together. Most employees, W-2 employees, enjoy 4 different benefits: health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, and some kind of retirement program. So if you're self-employed, then you have to seek out and figure out how to make those benefits happen for yourself. So disability insurance in short form is paycheck insurance. If you're too sick or hurt to work, then that's what's going to keep those paychecks coming in, even if you and your business aren't able to generate those things. So the most common form of disability insurance is that which ensures that your personal income continues if you're too sick or hurt to work. There's lots of details about how to set up a policy that are really important, but we'll keep it really high level. And that's the first type of disability insurance. And the most important is what happens to me and my income as the business owner if I can't work. Now then, if your business is of the size where you have employees and overhead, then you might need another type of disability insurance called business overhead expense insurance. What this does, and I'll use a really easy example of a dentist. Dentist owns a dentist's office, and there's several hygienists and some administrative people who make this thing go around. And let's say the dentist is unable to work. He has a hand injury. Then not only are we worried about making sure the dentist and his or her family are able to make their bills, but also what about all the people that work in that dentist's office and all the patients that come and see that dentist? Business overhead expense insurance makes sure that the dentist receives enough income to cover the paychecks of the people that are coming in that work for him or her, as well as what if there's an additional expense? What if that dentist needs to hire temporarily another dentist to come in and cover their patients while they're out? So there's a couple of different ways to look at that. One is to protect the business owner, him or herself, and the other is to protect the business itself if a key person is no longer able to perform their duties, whether it's temporary or permanent.
Wow, that's really interesting that you can have two different policies, especially the second policy, right? Where a lot of times the founder of the small business is the one who has the skill. And it would be important to be able to have someone temporarily be able to come in and replace that skill for a small time while we are recovering from whatever our disability may be.
You know, and interestingly, interesting to people like us, I worked with a dentist last year who was had a concern about what if something happens to me, and his brother also owned a dentistry practice. They're both married, and they actually set a deal with a disability insurance policy where if one or the other of them were unable to work anymore, then an insurance policy actually paid out enough for the other brother to buy the practice from the one who's disabled.
Wow.
Which is a lump sum disability insurance policy. And what they're technically doing for all you lawyer types out there is they're funding a buy-sell agreement with disability insurance.
So we should probably, like, maybe if we have someone else in our network that works similarly to us, like maybe work something out with them, possibly almost like that buy-sell with that company.
Absolutely. And again, things like this really get fleshed out when you're having a conversation with those professionals that are in your back pocket, like Tina was talking about. A good attorney, a good insurance agent, a good financial advisor is going to help you think through these things and listen to what you think is concerning. Some people that wouldn't be a concern at all, but for these two brothers, it's a really big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's another thing too, is that I find a lot of times is we know where to probe and what questions to ask. So be conscientious of that with the professional that you're working with. There's going to be a lot of questions that you may be asked that sound kind of weird, and that's okay. Roll with it, because we're in our heads thinking these things. And we have a place that we're going with that, so don't think we're I've gotten that before, like, why are you asking me about that? Like you were just talking about BOE, business overhead expense, and I just had a optometrist that she had $100,000+ worth of equipment that she just leased for her new business. And, her lender required that she have her own disability to cover just that equipment should something happen to her business and she can't pay that loan every month. So on top of BOE, there's BOE with a loan, there's all kinds of stuff. So, there's a lot of things you guys might not even think to know about. And that's us kind of probing just to make sure that we're leaving anything off the table for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Adam, I'd like to ask you a question because I think this is also in our minds as business owners. What happens if I get sued, and what kind of policies do I need to have just to protect myself in general as a business owner?
Oh my gosh. Well, it depends on my first statement would be, it all depends on what kind of business you're in, first of all. But as a very high level overview, every commercial insurance policy that you're going to have is going to have a base limit of what's called general liability, which is what will pay out and pay the attorney fees and costs associated with you getting sued for something that you're responsible for. So, depending on the type of business, that could be a multitude of things. It's we call it your slip and fall insurance, so to speak. And then when you're in a very specific industry where you make money off of advice, or you make money off of the information that you provide to other people, not necessarily a tangible good, then you're looking at things like professional liability. And that's like your medical malpractice insurance. That's your, I'm a hairstylist and I accidentally, cut your ear, or I messed up, on your hair, and somebody wants to sue you. That's the thing, is you never know, because especially in our society, you can get sued for anything. I mean, there doesn't even have to be a reason. Somebody can still sue you. And if that happens, you got to have your stuff in place that's going to protect you and kick in to help you through that situation. And it's the worst situation. I've had to help people through that. And it stops their entire life. It stops their business. It stops, we're talking years and years of potential problems. Many times for things that are totally out of their control, that aren't even their fault. It just happens because there's always those people that just want to, try and milk the system and try and get money.
Adam, I think you're right. It depends really on what you're getting sued for, and there's a million types of insurance
That's
out
true
there.
too. Yeah.
Yep.
Adam, will you talk briefly about D&O as well as products liability? Because I think a lot of people in the chamber need to know what those are, and that they're out there.
So a lot when it comes to things like products liability, that's covering the items that you're manufacturing, that you're selling, that you're producing. A lot of times you do have tangible goods, and so if you're a candle manufacturer or something, and you've got your company's name on a product, that's what you need to make sure that you're covering, not just somebody got hurt in my warehouse or in my store, but there's an issue with the product, or there's a recall or something that happens with an item that you're selling that is yours. And then that can also come into play with even items that you're selling that aren't yours, that you're selling from another third party. You've got to have right coverages for that. D&O insurance is called directors and officers. That would be something that, for example, the Chamber of Commerce would have, right? You've got a board of directors who make a lot of the financial decisions for an organization like a nonprofit or a not-for-profit. Those people need to be covered in the event they make a mistake, or the organization is put at risk or sued or something of that nature. That directors and officers insurance also breaks down further, and you have something called a fiduciary policy, which will kick in because a board member is acting on the best financial interests of an organization. So if there is ever a claim or something involved that is a breach of that, that's where those levels of a D&O policy will kick in. And there's all kinds of other, multiple things that you can add and remove from certain policies that's catered based on the organization that you're running. But for sure, protecting items that you're selling, for sure, covering the people that are working on your behalf of an organization, to make sure that those people that are supposed to be working in the best interest of the organization are, and that they're sticking, to the guidelines and the bylaws and things like that.
One thing I just wanted to add, the professional liability that Adam mentioned is often referred to as errors and omissions. So you'll hear it kind of use that term, and for a lot of people like in the design world or media buying agencies or creative services, as Adam shared, they're not producing tangible goods, but giving strategic advice or consulting. That's a very, very important and critical policy for you to have in addition to your general liability policy. So
Another good
yeah.
way, Becky, to call that that is like negligence, things that
Yes.
aren't done that physically hurt you. But if you run a business where you could make a mistake in advice or the way that you do something in your business, that's an
Yeah.
E&O. Like me as an insurance agent, if I give you bad advice and you take that advice and you get in trouble, I'm gonna get in trouble. I never give bad advice though. But everybody's human. The bottom line for that is people are human. People make mistakes. And so you need to make sure that you cover yourself, not just for you, but that's a good warm and cozy feeling that your clients want to know is that, hey, that, don't do business with businesses that are uninsured, because
Exactly.
they're probably not going to be the best of businesses anyway to begin with, regardless of what they're doing. And there's so many insurance agents, there's so many landscapers, there's so many CPAs. Pick one that cares enough about their business to cover themselves in the event something horrible happens.
And I'll add the cherry on the top of this discussion. Insurance is one layer of protection. If you find yourself on the wrong end of that lawsuit, insurance needs to be handled and set up correctly before the lawsuit happens. Another layer of protection is one that you discuss with your business attorney in what kind of entity you use to protect your personal assets from business exposure. So that's definitely a very important conversation to have. You should not have one without the other.
Would you say that I need insurance coverage no matter what? Or is there a revenue level where I'm like, okay, my revenues are here now. Now I should probably look at getting covered. Or is it something that you should do right from the beginning?
I mean, I've had businesses that just start up that say, look, I make $5,000 a year in this industry that I'm doing right now. I'm not going to pay $2,500 a year for an insurance policy. I get that. It doesn't mean that you can't start that conversation and build that relationship and work toward a goal to cover yourself. Because in the insurance world, like with me as an independent agent, I can go to your giant carriers that are the premier of insurers. And then I've got some access to smaller carriers that are going to run you a little bit less. They may not be rated as high. They may have certain exclusions or things on a policy, but there's usually always a way to find at least something to start you off with that's not going to break your bank. And that's might require a little bit of shopping or having an agent that can do that for you, that knows where to go, which markets to approach. But
let's be really clear about it. I'll make the argument that no matter if the smaller your business is, the less you can afford not to have insurance.
And that's where I was going with that too. You've got to do everything you can to start off right and then grow from there. A lot of times there's endorsements and coverages that are that extra layer of protection that you may not need up front. Like if you don't have employees, there's several endorsements for things that don't apply to your business at that time. That doesn't mean that's not something that can be added on or adjusted as your business grows and as you grow further. But Chase is 100% right. You're going into a business, right? So you're putting yourself at risk. You're putting your financials at risk. You need to do the right thing. It's like, if you can't afford the tip, don't go out to eat, is kind of how I look at it. So, we got to do what you can to get involved early to really get yourself set up on the right path for the future.
And I would add that, I think you'll be surprised. Some policies aren't as expensive as you think. When you see, oh, I need $1 million in liability.
Yeah.
It's really not, depending on your business, it's break it down on a monthly basis, and it is incredibly affordable. So do your homework, find out where you are now, and where, talk to your insurance agent about your 5-year plan and your 5-year goals. Because as your business grows, your insurance needs are going to grow. Right. So one policy isn't going to be the same today as you're going to want it to be as you continue to be successful. And the other thing to this discussion I'd add, as having been that business owner, we used our insurance as an asset in every single client pitch. We told them exactly how much liability we had, how we would add them as additional insureds and cover them.
Yep.
And that made clients feel comfortable and confident that this is a legitimate business that I want to do business with. I can trust with my money. I can trust with my project, because they've got my back, because they're covered should something happen, and I'll be covered if something happens. So it's, I always say insurance can be one of your greatest assets and a point of differentiation when you're in a competitive pitch with other people. So I was always going over and above to talk about insurance.
That's such a good point, Becky. 100%. Like, put that on your website too, guys.
Absolutely.
Say I am an insured and bonded, or whatever you are, business. It makes you look good.
Yeah. And it makes the other guys like, oh, I wonder if those guys have insurance. So
Becky, would you say that there is one type of policy that is consistently overlooked by business owners?
Well, not if they've got a good agent, because that agent's really going to ask them, as Adam said, kind of all of the questions. I think it's just for new businesses starting out. I think it's a scary topic that they don't really know who to ask or how to ask it. And that, I think that conversation gets overlooked. They get too excited about starting the business and forget about protecting the business. So that's just kind of my experience.
I've seen a lot of, kind of the first step that I go with when I get clients that are referrals, they're usually already insured, right? So I'm taking a look at their policy, taking a look at what they have, maybe where their gaps are, maybe where they're over or under insured. And I would say consistently, I will see at least 4 out of every 10 businesses that I look at are either missing something really important, or they're not even insured the right way to begin with. Like the codes that are being used on their policies are not even associated with the type of work that they do. So it's a lot of reworking, but a lot of coverages that I see missing out are because people will start a business and then they'll eventually start adding employees. And when you start adding employees, you start looking at things like workers' compensation. And I see, because in the state of Texas, you can quote self-insure on workers' compensation. And so a lot of businesses either forget, or their agent doesn't say, hey, you've hired 5 people now. What's going to happen when these people get hurt on the job, especially if they're in a type of work where that could potentially happen. So I see that being missed a lot, Leah. And I also see a lot of coverages that benefit the business in the event they're sued from their employees, whether it be mistreatment, sexual harassment, wrongdoing, those kind of things. And those are like really cheap endorsements to add on to most general liability policies. But that transition from no employees to employees is where I see a lot of gaps, which is another side note that I always tell people is, a good agent should be reviewing their policy, your policy, with you at the very least on an annual basis, and talking to you and knowing what your changes are and what's going on in your business. How are your sales changing? How are your payrolls changing? And the better that they know that, the more they'll be able to kind of advise you on things that you just, may not even have heard of before.
So would you say it's pretty important then, if I'm someone that maybe hasn't heard from my agent in a while and I am a small business owner, should I be maybe interviewing other agents, asking what their process is? What does that look like when I'm evaluating other people or other agents, maybe thinking about making a switch? What should I ask them?
you pick up the phone and you call somebody, or you get, I mean, especially if you're in the community, here's the thing. You got people like Becky, you got people like me and Chase, you got other insurance agents that are part of the chamber. That's a great place to start. Start in the community, and start with, somebody that has an agent like that. And if they don't, when you call and interview agents, it's just like an interview. I don't deserve your business any more than you deserve to give it to me, right? We need to know who each other are. You need to know why I would be a good fit for you, and vice versa. There are a lot of insurance agents out there that will I would assume most of them would do consultations for free. I'm never going to turn somebody down and have a conversation with them about their business. I love what I do. And so I'm going to spend 30 minutes with you easily just to go over what your needs are. But yeah, if you haven't been reviewed by your agent in a year, find another agent and ask them, how do you do business? Hey, I have an agent that I haven't heard from. I'm shopping around. Talk to me about you. I mean, interview us.
Keep in mind that every dollar your business spends is an opportunity to create or strengthen a relationship. So if one of your clients or customers or someone that your business has a relationship with offers a product or service, whether it's insurance or anything else that you need, make sure and give them a shot at it, because you could be creating and strengthening the relationships that your business has. You never know where that might lead.
Absolutely.
Chamber's a great place to do it.
Exactly.
So-
I would just real quick, I would add that a great place to start is to talk to other business owners in your industry, because as Adam mentioned, there's some agents or some agencies that have a niche in, specific fields or specific types of policies. So talk to your fellow business owners and say, who's your agent? Do you like them? What do you like about them? And get some referrals that way as well, because, and you'll also get some really great questions to ask from your fellow business owners, because they'll tell you about experiences they've had, which you may not have had yet as a business owner. So it's always good to, to ask around and get those good insights.
That's great advice, Becky. Thanks. So Chase, you talked a little bit earlier about sort of these exit strategies that you might work on. And sometimes we may exit a little sooner than we want. So what is there available for business owners to protect our families that don't really know what we do every day in our own business that we're running that's providing for them? How do we protect them if we were to die prematurely? What happens to the business?
Perfect tee up for a life insurance plug. Thank you, Leah. I do have an extensive background in life insurance, and I think a lot of people have a very basic and stereotypical understanding of life insurance. If I die, then an insurance company pays money to a beneficiary, and in its most basic form, that's exactly what it does. My favorite definition of insurance is the transfer of risk. So whether we're talking about the risk of being sued, the risk of being too sick or hurt to work, the risk of premature death, you have a choice. Do I want to transfer that risk to someone or something else, or do I want to retain that risk? So for business owners, life insurance becomes even more important than it does for someone who's a rank and file employee. Reason being, oftentimes that business owner is the lifeblood of that business. Business may not be able to continue without the owner, or the business may not have a lot of value if the owner isn't there. In other words, if my spouse who owns a business passes away, but the spouse is really the reason the business exists, because my spouse has the relationships or the special talent or whatever it is, then if my spouse passes away, that business may not be an asset that I can sell. Some businesses can't be owned by the spouse. If my spouse were an attorney and he died, I can't own a law firm because I'm not an attorney. So there are oftentimes really special circumstances that make life insurance a really important consideration for a business owner. People who co-own business together, business partners. If I have a business partner and my partner passes away, then the asset, my partner's half of the business, which hopefully it's not 50-50, but that's an attorney question. My partner's half of the business is now owned by my business partner's spouse, who may have no expertise, who may have no idea what the business is worth, anything else. And this is another one of those buy-sell agreement issues that needs to be thought about in the beginning. So I think the number one objection that an insurance agent is going to hear about life insurance for a business owner is, I don't have time for it, or my business is still in that survival getting started mode, and I really don't have the funds for it. There are ways to set this up that are very affordable, that don't take very much time to get set up, that also open doors for you later down the road when your business is more mature and you do have a little bit of time and bandwidth and maybe some financial bandwidth. Hopefully your business is successful enough that you get to the point where you're going, I'm looking for ways to pay less taxes and capitalize on the value of this business that I own other than income. So a lot of times we use life insurance as part of a benefits plan where we're legally hiding cash from the IRS and doing more complex planning. So the life insurance conversation can get really interesting, but in its most basic form, as the transfer of risk, business owners have a special obligation, a special duty to their family, to their employees, and the people they love, to make sure that they're able to check that box in the, okay, I own a business, what do I have to do to wear my adulting business owner hat? It's up there.
That's so interesting. And it's kind of this really deep dive. I feel like we could keep going deeper and deeper and get into the weeds. But I do love the idea of paying less in taxes, don't we all? Like my favorite thing.
There's an old Steve Martin bit about how to become a millionaire and not pay any income tax or not pay any taxes. First, you make $1 million and then you don't pay your taxes. Tough crowd. Steve Martin was a lot funnier in the 70s, I guess.
I want to remind anyone who's watching, please drop any questions that you might have for our panelists into the chat box. We're
not giving tax advice or legal advice.
We are not giving tax
Disclaimer.
advice. Pay your taxes. So I kind of want to open this up, and I'm going to go individually. Chase, I'm actually going to come back and start with you this time. Is there anything that you think I haven't asked about yet? Anything that's really important for our audience, our business owners, members of the chamber to understand or to be aware of? And I'm going to let everybody answer this question. So be thinking.
And I'll go in without thinking, which is my favorite way to operate. That is a really open-ended question. Yes, absolutely. There are a ton of things that we're not going to cover in an hour-long meeting that wouldn't really be that interesting because they don't apply to everyone. Your CPA's most frustrating answer to any of your questions is, well, it depends. And all financial professionals, whether they're tax, investment, insurance professionals, kind of fall in that same category. The advice we give is so specialized, not just to your industry, but also to your individual situation, the size of your business, the type of business, your family, your personal goals, your time horizons, that there's no way for you to get really concise help in this kind of setting. So the most important thing, and we've touched on it, I think, is to have relationships with the people that you rely on to keep your business running in the right direction. And there's a difference between working in your business and working on your business. Mm-hmm. Chances are, if you're really great at making widgets and that's your passion, your business is going to be more successful the more time you spend making widgets. But it comes with the obligation that you've got to work on your business too. So build that team of trustworthy, seasoned professionals around you that help you work on your business so that you can shine working in it.
That's great. And I think really at its core, it's that there's no one size fits all. And we're all a unique situation. And so we really need to have those trusted partners in our corner. Becky, I'm going to let you tackle this question next.
Well, I don't even know how to follow that because that was like so perfect. That should have been like the closing mic drop comment because it's so, it is, at the end of the day, that's really what it boils down to. And my hope is that we all look at our insurance agent as a part of our trusted advisor team. Like they're part of our team. They're just not somebody I pay a monthly premium to. Sometimes I think, we agents and insurance kind of falls into that expense category. And I'm like, no, we can be your biggest asset. We as agents, we as your insurance policy that's covering you, it is a mind switch. And you need to have ongoing conversations with your agent. And we're here to advise you, not just sell you a policy and then see you 3 years down the road or never, right? You pay us to advise you. We are part of your team. We are here to answer any questions and also connect you, right? We don't have all the answers in specific areas, but we will find the best person to give you advice in that specific area. So, and if your agent's not doing that, then you need to find a new agent, to be quite honest. And if your agent is on a keyboard on your computer screen, that is not an agent, and that is not the best person to have on your team. So, I'm just going to reiterate what Chase said, and I'll pass it over to Adam.
There's nothing much more to say on that. Don't think that just because you pay an annual premium or a monthly premium that it's just for the coverage. Don't hesitate to talk to your agent. And we all have lots of clients. We're not going to be able to talk to everybody all the time. I mean, and some people don't want that. That's okay. But when you're new and when you're growing and you have questions, use your resources. And there's so many things like, talk to Chase about anything financial related, and then he'll help you from there where to go. There's so many places you need to hit up on the spectrum of, running a business. So I've been part of the chamber for years too, and great relationships, great people, and everybody wants to help everybody. They really do.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining the panel today and educating our listeners. Tina, do you have any questions for the panelists?
Just huge thank yous. I've been monitoring. We've been broadcasting on Facebook and on YouTube and collecting comments. But kudos to Leah, because all the questions that came through, you asked. So thank you for being such a great host and making folks out there really understand about the relationship between your business partners and your trusted advisors is so key. If you're going to be and walk around town like you're a real business person, you really got to start walking the walk and surrounding yourselves with people who talk the talk. So thank you so much. I'm gonna tap you to have moderate all of our sessions coming up.
And it needs to be said to everyone out there listening, Leah is not only a fantastic moderator, she's also a CFP, a certified financial planner, which is a very difficult designation to get, and it means she has a lot of expertise. She's one of those trusted professionals that you can absolutely count on in your corner, who's also a chamber member and volunteers her time here. So chances are, if you're watching, listening to this, we already have a lot in common and a lot of the same passions. So please consider Leah as one of those professionals that you can come to for advice as well.
Thank you, Chase. I'm
Absolutely.
so happy to be here at the chamber, and I'm hoping that y'all will see my face more as I move forward with all of this fun business committee, business academy, education seminars. I think there's going to be some really great things coming down the pipeline next year, so stay tuned.
All right, thanks all.
Awesome.
Have a great
Fantastic.
weekend. Go
Thank
call
you
your
all.
agent.
Yeah.
All right, let me take you guys off of